You've probably seen the headlines. 18% of American households are millionaires. Maybe you're in that group, or maybe you're just close. But what does that really mean for your retirement? When you strip out home equity and look at the actual investment assets, the picture changes dramatically. Today I'm going to show you exactly how many retirees have $1 million in investable assets, where you likely stand, and more importantly, why that number matters a lot less than you might think. Hi, my name is Jeremy, and I've been helping people successfully retire for nearly 30 years. Let's get into the numbers. According to the Federal Reserve Survey of Consumer Finances, which is the gold standard of wealth data in America, 18% of U.S. households have a net worth of $1 million or more, including their house. But here's what the headlines don't tell you. The median household net worth, which is kind of the middle of the pack, is around $193,000. And once you exclude home equity, that number drops down to $58,000. That's the median investable net worth of American households, only $58,000. So why such a big gap? Because for most families, the house is the single biggest asset they own. For many people, their home represents half, sometimes more, of their total net worth. So if 18% of households are millionaires when you include their home equity, what happens when you strip that out? Well, the numbers drop dramatically, likely in the 8 to 10% area. But here's where it gets interesting for retirees specifically. By retirement age, you've had decades to save and invest, so your balances look much different than someone who is not retired yet. I mean, that's obvious, right? According to the data from the Employee Benefit Research Institute, only about 3% of retirees have $1 million or more in their retirement accounts alone. That's just counting their IRAs and 401ks. But when you include all investable assets, which is brokerage accounts, savings accounts, basically everything outside the house, that number climbs to around 20% or 22% of retirees. So roughly 1 in 5 retirees has crossed the $1 million mark in investable wealth. That means if you're sitting on $1 million in investable assets, you're somewhere between the 75th and 80th percentile among retirees. And you're ahead of about 4 out of 5 people your age. But here's the question nobody asks, and it's really important. But what does that $1 million actually do for you? Let me give you a quick example. We've got 2 people, both have a net worth of $1 million. One is Cashflow Carol and has a $200,000 home and an $800,000 investment portfolio. Now, House Rich Henry has $800,000 home and $200,000 investment portfolio. Same net worth on paper, but completely different retirements. So, if we use a 4.5% withdrawal rate, Cashflow Carol can generate $36,000 a year from her investments. But House Rich Henry can only generate $9,000 a year. The same $1 million net worth, but 4 times the income difference. And here's what makes it worse for House Rich Henry. That $800,000 home costs more to maintain. Higher property taxes, higher insurance, more to heat and cool, and more to repair. So not only is Henry generating less income, he's also spending more money just to keep the roof over his head. This is why I tell clients, cash flow is what really matters in retirement. Unless you plan to sell your home or downsize, your home equity doesn't pay the electric bill, it doesn't buy groceries, and it doesn't fund your dream trips. Your investable assets do. Now I want to point out something important. These numbers, 3%, 20%, 8%, they're all estimates. And here's why. Most people have their money scattered out across multiple different accounts. Maybe you got a 401k at an employer. Maybe you got an IRA at Vanguard or a brokerage account at Fidelity and a savings account somewhere else. There's no real central system that tracks all of it. So if you've got $500,000 at Vanguard and $500,000 at Fidelity, you're a millionaire, and that's liquid, but you won't show up on either firm's report as a millionaire. Even the Federal Reserve's survey, which is the best data we have, relies on self-reporting. and high net worth households are often underrepresented or give incomplete answers. So take every statistic you hear with a grain of salt. What really matters is your number, not someone else's. Here's what I want you to take away from this. $1 million is just a number. It sounds nice and looks good on paper, but by itself, it really doesn't matter. What does really matter is what your money can do for you. $1 million in the South is very different than $1 million in San Francisco. $1 million at age 65 with good health is very different than $1 million at 55 years old, funding adult children and taking care of aging parents. All right, so I had a client, let's just call him Tom, retired with $1.4 million in investable assets, and he lived in a modest house in South Carolina, Palmetto State. No debt, and Social Security covered a lot of his basic expenses because he was very frugal. He was worried he didn't have enough money. But after I showed him the math between his investment portfolio and his Social Security, he could safely spend $125,000 a year and still leave money to his kids and grandkids. You see, he thought he was behind, but he was actually ahead of 95% of retirees. I have seen so many people be standing on the finish line and they just don't know it yet. So the number in your account doesn't matter as much as what that number can do for you in your life. Some people need $5,000 a month, some $50,000 a month. Some can retire on $500,000, others need $5 million. Okay, here are a few action steps to find out where you actually stand. First, understand what your Social Security actually covers for you. According to JP Morgan research, if you've earned $100,000 a year in pre-retirement income, Social Security replaces 33% of your income. If you've earned $150,000, Social Security only replaces 26%. And if you've earned $300,000, Social Security only replaces 14% of your pre-tax income. So the more you earn, the bigger gap you have to fill with your own investments. Second, if you're married, don't overlook spousal Social Security benefits. Mass Mutual did a study and found out that a quarter of people approaching retirement don't even know spousal benefits exist, and they're leaving a significant amount of money on the table. If your spouse didn't work or earned significantly less than you, they can still collect Social Security based on your work record. They can get up to 50% of your benefit at full retirement age. So let's say your benefit at age 67 is $3,000 a month. Your spouse could receive $1,500 a month on top of that, even if they didn't pay into the system. That's $4,500 a month combined, $54,000 a year in guaranteed income before you even touch your portfolio. Now, if your spouse has worked and earned their own benefit, Social Security pays whichever is higher, their own benefit or the spousal benefit. But you need to know both numbers to make the right decision. And when you factor in timing and coordination of each spouse's benefit, the right Social Security strategy can mean $250,000 or more in additional lifetime benefits. That's $250,000, real money, and it's really worth getting that right. Third, stop fixating on the $1 million. Instead, figure out your number. How much do you need in retirement? What kind of life do you want? And work backwards from there. Maybe you need $1.5 million to live. Maybe you need only $700,000. That really depends on your situation, not someone else's headline. And fourth, translate assets into income. Take your investable assets, multiply by 4.5%. That's a rough starting point for what your portfolio could generate for you each year. And if you've got $1 million, that's $45,000 a year. You add Social Security on top of that. If you're blessed with any pensions, add those in. And now you have a clearer picture of what your retirement income could be. And fifth, contextualize your wealth. Where do you live? What are your healthcare costs? Do you have any debt? What's your lifestyle? $1 million in Myrtle Beach goes a lot further than $1 million in Manhattan. This is one of the reasons why many people move in retirement, and one of the many, many reasons why y'all are all moving to Myrtle Beach. Here's what I've learned after nearly 30 years of working with retirees. The people who retire well aren't always the ones with the biggest of portfolios. They're the ones with the plan that coordinates their income, taxes, and investments into one overall system. If you want help put together a plan, I've put together a free video called the Riverbend Bridge Method. It's a framework we use with clients. The link is in the description. You can watch it now. I hope all's well with you and your family, and I'll see you in the next video.